The maid's backpack contained $2.3 million in cash and a one-way ticket to Buenos Aires, all while the billionaire's missing wife's locket dangled from her wrist. Marcus Harrington, CEO of Harrington Global, felt his world crumbling as he watched the security footage his head of security had just delivered. Elena, the quiet woman who had worked in his mansion for only 3 months, was apparently planning to disappear tonight with what appeared to be everything he had left of Catherine. The locket contained the only photo of them together before the accident that had left him a widower at 38. It was his most treasured possession, one he'd noticed missing just yesterday. But why would she take the money and the locket? What connection could his unassuming maid possibly have to his late wife? Follow her tonight, James. Don't intervene unless absolutely necessary. I need to understand what she's doing before I involve the authorities. Marcus instructed his most trusted security officer, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. The stakes couldn't be higher. Not only was the money significant, but losing that locket would be like losing Catherine all over again. Something about Elena's gentle demeanor and the careful way she handled his late wife's belongings had always struck him as odd. Now he wondered if her entire presence in his home had been calculated, a long con he'd fallen for because grief had made him vulnerable. James nodded solemnly and left to prepare for the evening surveillance. Marcus turned to the window of his penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk settled. Elena had already left for the day, presumably to make her final preparations. His mind raced with possibilities. Was she working with someone? Was this connected to his business rivals, or was there something more personal at play? The mystery gnawed at him as he poured himself a drink with shaking hands. As night fell, Elena moved through the city with purpose, unaware of James following at a careful distance. She wore simple jeans and a gray hoodie, a stark contrast to her maid's uniform, and carried only a small bag, not the backpack with the money. She made her way to the children's hospital on the east side of the city, a place Marcus recognized immediately. It was where Catherine had volunteered before her death, reading to sick children and bringing them toys. James watched in confusion as Elena entered through the staff entrance, using what appeared to be an authorized keycard. Inside, Elena moved with the familiarity of someone who belonged there. She greeted nurses by name, stopped to chat with a doctor, and then made her way to the oncology ward. James, posing as a visitor, maintained his distance but kept her in sight. What happened next made him freeze in his tracks. Elena entered a private room and was immediately embraced by a small child, no more than 7 years old, with the same striking blue eyes as Marcus's late wife. The child's medical chart at the foot of the bed read Sophia Harrington. James's hand trembled as he took photos and sent them to Marcus with a simple message: "Sir, you need to see this immediately." The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Catherine had a child he knew nothing about. How was this possible? His mind reeled as he ordered his driver to take him to the hospital at once. The money, the locket, Elena's secretive behavior, none of it made sense yet. But he was determined to uncover the truth, even if it shattered the reality he thought he knew. By the time Marcus arrived at the hospital, Elena was sitting beside the child's bed, reading her a story. The girl was thin and pale, clearly undergoing treatment, but her smile was radiant as she listened to Elena's animated storytelling. Marcus stood in the doorway, unnoticed, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure they must hear it. The child Sophia had Catherine's smile, her expressive hands, even the way she tilted her head when she was concentrating. There was no doubt in his mind that this was Catherine's daughter, but how, when, and why had she kept this from him? Elena finally sensed his presence and looked up, her face draining of color. "Mr. Harrington," she whispered, instinctively moving to stand between him and the child. "You weren't supposed to find out like this." "Find out what exactly?" Marcus asked, his voice barely audible. "Who is she, Elena, and who are you really?" Before Elena could answer, a doctor appeared behind Marcus, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Harrington, we have Sophia's latest test results. The treatment is working better than expected." The doctor paused, noticing Marcus. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had another visitor." "Ms. Harrington," Marcus repeated, looking at Elena with new confusion. Elena took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving his. My real name is Elena Harrington. Catherine was my sister. The words hung in the air between them, changing everything. And Sophia is her daughter, your daughter, Marcus. Catherine never told you she was pregnant before the accident. Marcus gripped the door frame for support, the world tilting beneath his feet. A daughter. He had a daughter, and Catherine's sister had been working in his home, watching him, judging whether he deserved to know about his own child. The betrayal and wonder collided within him, leaving him speechless as he stared at the little girl who was now looking at him with curious eyes that mirrored his own. Why? He finally managed. Why the deception, the money, my wife's locket? Elena's eyes filled with tears. The money isn't yours. It's Catherine's life insurance that was meant for Sophia's treatment. I've been keeping it safe until I could be sure. She trailed off, looking guilty. The treatments are experimental and expensive. Insurance won't cover them, and the locket, she reached into her pocket and pulled it out. I was having it resized for Sophia. Catherine wanted her to have it when she was old enough. Sophia's small voice interrupted them. Are you my daddy? Aunt Elena said my daddy was very busy and important, but that he would love me if he knew me. The simple question broke something open in Marcus's heart. He moved slowly into the room, kneeling beside the bed. I think I am, he said softly, and I'm sorry I didn't know about you sooner. I would have been here every day. As Marcus reached out a tentative hand to touch his daughter's cheek, Elena watched with a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had spent months working in his home, trying to determine what kind of man he truly was, whether Catherine had been right to love him so deeply. The money had never been stolen, merely safeguarded for the child he didn't know existed. But now that he knew, everything would change. Over the next few weeks, Marcus rearranged his entire life around hospital visits and getting to know his daughter. The experimental treatments were working, but Sophia still had a long road ahead. Elena explained everything: how Catherine had discovered her pregnancy just days before the accident, how she'd made Elena promise to protect the baby if anything happened, how Elena had been too distrustful to simply approach Marcus with the truth. Catherine always said you worked too hard, that you were driven to build something meaningful. Elena explained one evening as they sat in the hospital cafeteria. After she died, I watched you throw yourself even deeper into your work. I was afraid you wouldn't have room in your life for a sick child. Marcus nodded, understanding her fear even as it pained him. I was building it all for her, for the family we planned to have. Without her, it just became a way to numb the pain. He looked toward Sophia's room, but now I have a reason again, a better one. As Sophia's condition improved, Marcus faced a decision that would test his priorities. His company was in the middle of its biggest acquisition yet, one that required his presence in Tokyo for 2 critical weeks. The old Marcus wouldn't have hesitated to go, but now the thought of leaving Sophia even for a day felt impossible. The board was pressuring him, reminding him of his responsibilities to shareholders, the thousands of jobs at stake. The night before he needed to decide, he sat beside Sophia's bed as she slept, watching her chest rise and fall. Elena entered quietly, placing a cup of coffee beside him. Their relationship had evolved from suspicion to a cautious alliance, united by their love for Sophia. You should go, Elena said softly, surprising him. I'll be with her every minute, and you can video call twice a day. She'll understand. Marcus shook his head. How can I leave when every day with her feels like a gift I almost missed entirely? What if something happens while I'm gone? Catherine always believed in what you were building. Elena replied. She said you were creating something that would help people, not just make money. She hesitated. The doctors say Sophia is stable now. The hardest part is behind us. As dawn broke, Marcus made his decision. He called an emergency board meeting and announced he would attend the Tokyo negotiations remotely. If the deal fell through, so be it. Some things were more important than business. To his surprise, the board, many of them parents themselves, unanimously supported his decision and helped restructure the negotiations to accommodate his needs. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Harrington put family before business, and instead of collapsing, his world expanded. The acquisition succeeded despite his remote participation, and his leadership team stepped up in ways he hadn't allowed before. Meanwhile, Sophia grew stronger each day, her resilience reminding him so much of Catherine that it sometimes took his breath away. 6 months later, Sophia was finally well enough to leave the hospital. The question of where she would live had been resolved weeks earlier. Marcus had renovated the east wing of his mansion into a bright, cheerful space for his daughter, with a connecting suite for Elena. The three of them had formed an unconventional family, bound by their love for the woman they had lost and the child who carried her spirit. On the day Sophia came home, Marcus showed her Catherine's garden, the one place in the mansion he had maintained exactly as his wife had left it. Sophia moved through it with wonder, touching the flowers her mother had planted, sitting on the bench where Catherine had spent peaceful mornings. "Your mother loved this garden," Marcus told her. "She said it reminded her that beautiful things need time and care to grow." He knelt beside Sophia, taking her small hands in his. "Just like you." Elena watched from a distance, giving them this moment together. The journey from suspicion to trust had been complicated, but seeing Marcus with Sophia, seeing how completely he had rearranged his life and priorities for a child he hadn't known existed, had answered all her questions about his character. That evening, as Sophia slept in her new bedroom surrounded by photos of Catherine, Marcus found Elena in the garden. "Thank you," he said simply, "for protecting her when I couldn't, for giving me the chance to know her." Elena smiled, the weight of her secret finally lifted. "Catherine would be proud of you, of us all." As they stood together under the stars, Marcus realized that his greatest loss had led to his most precious gift. The money that Elena had been safeguarding was now in a trust for Sophia's future, and Catherine's locket hung around their daughter's neck, keeping her mother close to her heart. The pain of Catherine's loss would never fully disappear, but it had been transformed into something new, a family forged through adversity and bound by love. If this story of unexpected connections and second chances touched your heart, remember that life's most beautiful revelations often come when we least expect them. Sometimes what appears to be betrayal is actually protection, and what seems like an ending can become the most meaningful beginning. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it today, and follow for more stories that remind us of the power of forgiveness, the importance of truth, and the unexpected ways love finds us even in our darkest moments.